No Vertigo video, please.
Rolling?
Yeah.
All right, Millsy. Good and loud. Too buzzy. Let me get a little more juice.
A little buzzy.
A little too buzzy.
That makes okay?
Oh yeah. Let me get Okay, here we go.
Echo at 300% good?
Sounds fucking great.
That's awesome.
That was great.
One pass.
Boom.
How about that?
Man, no regrets. You know, hard to keep a theme going that long, but that,
Well, if you look at the mix, so here's the mix. It
that'll
fades out way earlier, so.
yeah, but dude,
So I think you're good.
fucking sweet.
You want about 15 more playlists?
Yeah, that was the tone fits in there.
The
Beautiful.
tone's awesome,
Fucking
dude.
love it. Good work, Mills.
Thanks, Tom. Good work, Tom. It's easy when you got great guitars.
guitar sound like bone dry.
Bone dry.
You still rolling? I left.
Yeah.
Keep going, man. If I could keep it going. Right here. Go to the top. Sure, we got it. Sure,
Top?
we got it, man.
Good job, Tom, as always.
Thank you, brother.
I don't think I've ever seen you choke.
Yeah.
Maybe once. It's been so long though. I've never seen you just like completely implode.
Implode.
I've heard about you.
Well,
You've told me sometimes.
back in my drug days, tripping out, but it wasn't really musical. It was more personal. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, but yeah, no. There's no such thing as a musical emergency. That's the first rule.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the first rule. Once you know that.
No open heart surgeries in music.
Although, I imagine for an engineer, if you somehow erased.
Oh, there's a few things you don't do.
That could be an emergency. That could literally be.
I don't ever clean up hard drives.
Right.
Because that's asking for it.
Well, that could cost you thousands of dollars.
Yeah. And we back up like crazy.
Right.
We back up online.
Have you ever lost something? Ever?
Yes. Yes.
One time?
You know, there's two types of people that work computers.
Right.
Those that have lost their shit and they're getting ready to.
Yeah, getting ready to, yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. I pulled up a mix for Steve Azar just earlier this year, and there was one time I had a drive fail about 2 years out here, a couple years ago, and the backup drive was full, and I hadn't backed up for 2 weeks, and there was the session was there, the mix was not. It was like Rev 1 is all I had, but there was 4 revisions, and I just had to fess up. You know, it's okay. And it was like 3 years later they decided to make a mix revision. I'm like, well, here we got a problem.
Dear homeschoolers, this guy and I go back a long way.
The
Mills
90s.
Logan.
The 90s.
This used to be my studio. I used to own this house.
16 years.
This is my studio for many years. And sold it to
2002
you.
to 2017.
2017.
15 years.
Yeah. Look at all this gear he's got. Show him around.
We've got what we need.
We got what we need, and we got more stores.
There's more out in the hallway,
yeah.
too. There's way more out in the hallway.
Yeah. Bring the old tour there.
Ooh, got to show it all off, right?
Yeah. And you know what I love about Mills? Show him those crazy. One of my favorite things about Mills is that when you're tracking, he's the only guy I know that does this. You put these beautiful stereo effects in your headphones while you're tracking. With those prime times, right? Is that what you use?
Prime times, harmonizer.
Oh man,
DC
that
Electronics.
shit is so inspiring when you.
And that's half the gig.
Oh, it's so
if you're not
inspiring.
inspired, what's the point?
There's
right?
no effect that any guitar player can add pre-amplifier that's as cool as that shit. When you hear that in stereo coming off the console in phones,
yeah, it's nice and
it's
loud.
so much better than anything that I could do.
Well, and sometimes that inspires that.
Well, yeah, you got both.
Yeah,
you get both.
exactly.
But today we're going direct. Right
the little
into
Cappy
the,
audio
there.
guy.
Yeah, and we're
That
blowing
wonderful
up,
little, and then we're blowing it up with the
Good old stay level.
And if you can see that meter while we're recording, it's about most of the way down.
Yeah.
Most of the way down.
30 some odd
Look at the
dB
input
compression.
Look at the input
Yeah, we got it all
Input
cranked.
levels up there pretty good.
solo up that guitar sound that we used on the verses and stuff, and let them hear that by itself with the effects that you add.
Okay.
And print.
That's just this guy right here. There it is, dry. And a little extra added effects.
doing like, is that the Primetime doing that?
No, that's actually a plug-in.
It's fantastic. Give them the shimmer, and shake like that. What's it? What are you using for that?
Echo Boy Jr.
Sure.
With the Space Echo preset.
Can you dial up the Primetime? Is that hard to do right now?
No, I got it.
Oh,
right
we
here.
got it.
Just let him hear the Primetime on that sound.
Let's see, that's Echo, that's number 1, so Echo 3, and it's coming off 15, 16.
Mills, tell him that story about the first time we ever worked together. A million years ago, what, 30 years ago?
With Wayne and
Yeah,
Kurt
with Wayne,
Wagner.
yeah.
We borrowed some amps.
Yeah.
We borrowed like
30
$20,000 worth of Marshall amps from you.
30
And
years
that's
ago.
the first time I met you.
Yeah.
And that was at like 90. You had just come off the road with
Yeah.
Wayne on a Judd.
Yeah, 96 probably, right around
96, 97. And I still have all the analog tapes that session sitting out there. And Kurt was like, "Yeah, this guy Tom, he's a pretty good guitar player." And Kurt is so funny. And you came over and were super nice to loan us. And did you know Kurt that well?
Barely. Yeah.
He loaned us all these amps.
Yeah.
And we had these amps for about several weeks. And
Who was really playing guitar? Kurt?
yeah, Kurt was playing guitar. And Wayne was the drummer. I was the band engineer.
Yeah.
I did not play. I tried to play a little bit. It sucked.
Yeah.
And we borrowed your amps, and then you said, "Hey, I'm thinking about getting in I want to do some sessions."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh man, dude, it's really hard to get in."
Yeah.
And you came in and you did we had, I don't know what it was, some demo session or something at Creative, and you came in. I thought, "Wow, that guy's pretty good." You kind of found your way. You didn't seem lost, and then we started doing sessions with Paige.
Yeah.
On the Pure Music demos when she was writing for Pure, and I was just like, I remember telling Kenny Greenberg, I'm like, "Man, have you heard this guy Tom from Bukovac play guitar?" He goes, "Man, I'm hearing he's pretty good." And then all of a sudden I couldn't get you anymore. That was it. And then you went into full record mode, and then I'd see you occasionally, and we'd do some sessions occasionally. Like, "Tom, what are you doing next week?" "Oh man, I'm working with Byron Gallo." I'm like, "Fuck man, I can't get Tom." And then it was that's and then you just carried on. So it was,
And you used to come over here and record for me when this was my studio.
That's right.
You did engineer, and you always liked this place, and you had
I
your own
loved working
studio.
here.
And then one day I said, "Mills, I'm thinking of selling that house. I want that studio." And you wanted it. I knew you did.
Yep.
And
I thought, well, I'm gonna come out there and look. I don't really want to live in Bellevue.
right.
I didn't like Bellevue. I didn't think I'd like. I love it out here now.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, well, I like that. It's a nice house. It's more house than I need, but I just want the studio. And I love the house. I love Bellevue. And of course, I love the studio. And this studio has been rocking every day.
That's right. And,
Sometimes 7 days a week because you're here when
Yeah,
I'm not on the
exactly.
weekend.
Tell us your name, cameraman.
Grant
Grant
Morgan, behind the
Grant
camera.
is the other guy that works here, and we cannot do the amount of work we do without Grant here.
Grant.
So
Oh.
it's a good team.
You know, and I'm
Thank
happy
you.
for you that you got the studio and that you're kicking ass at her because I love you and I always have. But I will say that selling this place was the biggest regret of my life. Well, that and blowing my ears out when I was a kid playing in club bands. Those are the two biggest regrets in my
Your
life.
ears are in good shape.
No, dude, I'm half deaf this year.
Really?
Yeah, from playing in club bands.
You're
But
playing your ass
dude,
off, dude.
Yeah.
and I always thought I'd rebuild another studio, right? That's why I never had any qualms about selling this, but I never did. I always
Let's
thought I
put your
would.
place together.
Yeah.
I will.
I'll help you with some gear.
I still got all the gear.
I got a lot of ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Man.
I got all kinds of opinions on gear, man. You got tons of gear. You still have all that outboard
I
gear,
still
right?
got a lot of gear, yeah.
I need the parking in those racks over here. We don't have a space, but we'll
You
make
don't have room
space.
for you make space.
We'll make space. We'll go up. Let's keep going up.
Exactly.
This project you guys were hearing is for a dear homeschooler, a guy who watches the show who wanted to put some Uncle Larry guitar on one of his buddy's tracks. So I don't have my own studio like I mentioned, so I came over here to do it with Mills. They send in the files. We pull up the tracks over here, put some tasty guitars on, and there you go.
Sounds freaking great. Too.
And yeah, thank you, man. And Mills actually watches the Homeskoolin show.
I do.
In his free time. He's a homeschooler.
I remember when you first started during COVID.
Yeah. Any suggestions about how
You got the mug, right, Mills? The homeschooling mug, right?
I do.
it's up to 20 million views, bro.
Overall.
Oh, shit.
20 million views.
Damn.
You believe
Good
it?
for you, man.
That's crazy.
And you're a natural at it.
No,
Yeah.
Don't try to improve it.
Any suggestions about how I can make the show better? Dancing girls?
Well, I mean, some hot girls are never a bad thing.
Maybe an episode at Deja Vu or something.
Maybe you could do some bikini hauls in between.
Yeah.
That'd be great. wet t-shirt contest.
Yeah, I have a couple girls. I'm sure.
Homeschooling t-shirts.
Yeah, use the homeschooling bikini haul.
No. But it's always.
I wouldn't change a thing, man. Part of the charm is that you take the iPhone, you stick it on the counter. Like you could get like a whole camera crew, and it probably would suck.
Yeah.
No offense, Grant.
I'm none taken.
No, I mean, he's holding the iPhone. That's okay.
Yeah.
So I always like to, you've seen in the show, I always like to introduce all the natural people that make this town go. Mills is this go-to engineer for, there's, what is there, a dozen engineers? There's like a dozen guys that do everything.
Oh, there's a lot more than that.
You're one of them. You're one of a dozen engineers that I always hear the names of. If any, like, who should we get? You're one of 12 guys that gets mentioned.
I'm
That's
number
like
12. I'm number 12.
But you're doing a lot of Atmos mixes these days.
We've done over 1,100 Dolby
1,100
Atmos mixes in 4 years.
So now this room mixes Atmos, and Mills
Yeah, see all the freak. We got
Yeah,
speakers.
speakers everywhere.
So tell them about that real quick.
Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
It's awesome. There's some haters.
Yeah.
There's always gonna be some haters.
Yeah.
But when heard in the proper environment, it's absolutely amazing. And I just bought the Sonos. This is not a plug for Sonos. Era 300. One speaker. It's one box with tons of speakers in the box. Set it up in the living room in there, and you run a little room tuning check on it. It's unfreaking believable. One
Sounds
speaker.
like 5 speakers.
It sounds like 10 speakers. Now it's not quite as immersive as this, but for one speaker for $500, I'm blown away. And you can set 2 of them up.
Do you think anybody will ever? See, I was talking with Dan Huff the other day about this at backstage. We were talking about Atmos, and a bunch of guys were all weighing in. And he went to Dan did a like one of those.
I was there.
Panels.
I did 2
right?
of them.
Yeah, you were there.
I did 2 later on the day.
So you're yeah. And he was
Him
saying
and David
he didn't really want to go because he doesn't really work in Atmos or anything, but he thought it would be good to learn, to learn. So he went along. And
He was amazed at all the people that showed up.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he said that one of the things that's a little unusual about it is the fact that you're making Atmos mixes out of something that wasn't designed to be Atmos. So like he's saying, if we started making records,
well, that would certainly take it to the next level.
with that in mind, if we had Atmos studios where we actually made the records for Atmos, that would be pretty.
But
amazing.
there's so much information on a multi-track.
Yeah.
Like a 24 track or
Yeah.
48 tracks, or God knows these days way more.
Yeah.
There's so much information, and it's effortless. The first thing I ever mixed was Red Rider's Lunatic Fringe.
Right.
Number 1.
Produced by Richard Landis, who just recently died. sadly.
Richard Landis produced that. I didn't know
He
that.
died, man.
Tremendous
Did
track.
you know he died?
Yes, I did know that. That's
Man,
a
I love that guy.
He was awesome.
God.
But I liked that song as a kid.
Yeah.
And then when they gave that to me to mix, I'm like, oh, I know what to do with this. First song immediately sounded freaking great. And so, but with all that stuff, yeah, yeah. But with all that instrumentation, whether it's just 2 guitars, bass, and drums, some effects, it's beautiful Atmos.
Yeah.
And the thing that some people aren't sure about is like, well, the headphones are one thing. Headphones can be cool if done right. I work very hard to make sure the headphones sound great. But as cars, like Lincoln's starting to do it in some of their cars, Volvo, some other manufacturers, when you hear it in a car, you can do this easily.
Right.
You can do 714s, 914 in a car, no problem.
Right,
And when people hear that, they're going to lose their fucking mind.
Now, what do you think about this regarding Atmos? Another guy, Buckley, was talking about this. He was saying he did
Buckley Miller?
he was doing a bunch of mixes. He'd done some mixes on an album, and somebody sent it to him on Apple Music, and he pulls up the mixes, and he was like, God, it sounds like shit. And he realized they weren't using his actual mixes. They default use the Atmos mixes.
That's right.
On
Apple does that.
because
And you
Apple's
can turn it off.
really who's pushing this. Right?
Well, and the spatial audio mix is certainly different. When done right, it can be pretty cool. It's definitely different. And but to hear the true binaural mix, which is what Tidal and Amazon provide for headphones, is definitely a bit more immersive in my opinion. But they got their thing. And but if you've never heard spatial audio, and if you were the original mixer, then you hear it in spatial, it might take a little getting used to.
Sure.
For sure.
Now let me ask you this.
But you can turn it off in Apple. You can turn it off, and
Right.
if you do a regular pair of non-Apple headphones, and you have and you go to the music preferences on your iPhone, and you turn on Atmos always on, and you have like say these Odyssey headphones or whatever,
Yeah.
it will play the binaural mix, and that's what you really want.
That's what you want.
That's
Okay.
what you want.
You've done 1,100 Atmos mixes over the course of what?
4 years.
4 years?
Since summer of 2019.
2019. And these are all classic records that he's remixed.
Well,
right?
some new releases and some, a lot of catalog, tons of catalog.
And you have the soloed tracks of all these records that you're remixing?
We have
Usually.
Gloria Gaynor on the I Will Survive right
Right,
up there right now.
Okay,
and it's
so
fantastic.
Of all, I know you love to study isolated tracks the way as much as I do. Of all 1,100 of those songs, what's the most awesome single isolated track on any song?
Oh, there's a bunch, but one that comes to mind right away is Chest Fever, the band.
Yeah. The organ bit?
It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
I heard that and I immediately had to call Kenny Greenberg and go, because he's a big fan of those guys.
Get
I said,
over here.
dude, you gotta come do this. This will blow your mind.
Jesus.
Gosh, there's so many though, but that's the one that comes to mind. A lot of the old Motown stuff's been pretty amazing.
I mean, because you can actually hear what they're really playing.
Glenn Campbell, Wichita lineman.
Yeah.
It made me cry.
Yeah.
And my wife, I played it for her in Atmos. She hates everything.
Yeah.
She cried. Supertramp's Logical Song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
That was a good one.
What's a track you worked on of those 1,100 mixes that you couldn't believe how sloppy it was?
Steve Miller.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I edited.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are going to see this, but
Yeah.
I won't rename the song because I can't remember. It was one of the big ones,
Right.
and the bass drum pattern. I can't remember exactly. It's been a while. It's been 4 years ago, but it was so weird.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, what? And as I solo out the drums, I'm like, oh dear. In Atmos, sometimes things become more apparent than they are in the stereo mix. So I go back to the stereo mix. Oh, it's there, but you can't notice it as much. And I'm like, Atmos, I'm gonna do the absolute forbidden thing. I'm gonna edit the drums on the Steve Miller track, and I did. And you know what? It sounded great.
Well, those records were never known for their tightness.
No,
That's
but
for
they're
sure.
great
They're
records.
great
And I thought, well, I'm gonna edit these drums. I'm gonna playlist it because if it sucks, I'm gonna put it back. But it didn't suck. I think it made it past the QC team.
Yeah.
So. I
Amazing.
can't remember the song though. That I probably shouldn't say, but it was one of the
Yeah,
big ones.
I mean, it's not like we're dogging it. Or making fun
No,
of
it's
it.
awesome. Yes.
Yeah. You working on a lot of Atmos with stuff too?
He
Yeah.
sets almost everything up,
Yeah, he set everything up.
and he does a lot of the what we call pre-mixing if there's no stems.
Right.
And I don't know how much we can talk about this, but the old catalog stuff, there is no stems,
Right.
so we have to. And there's been some issues here. Remix the track to match the stereo mix, which is not as hard as you would think. It still takes a lot of time, but we mix until it sounds exactly like the original mix, and then we Atmos. And he does a lot of that, and he does a freaking great job at it.
Right.
And we have the session, so if it's not quite right, like I'll take it and finish it, and then Atmos. And there's a lot of reward to that. It's an enormous amount of work. It's enormous.
You probably learned a lot about mixing.
Oh,
Oh,
my
yeah.
Lord. We learn all kinds of stuff because you dig in, you start listening to a mix like you've never. And then when you listen to it, when you're listening to stereo mix just regular, you only have the stereo mix. But when we have the multi tracks and you have the stereo mix, then you go, oh, check that out.
Okay.
And then you all of a sudden realize what they did to that sound to make it like it is, because you hear the multi track and it doesn't sound anything like it does on the stereo mix. And you're like, oh, they did this, they put this effects, they did this EQ, they did this compression, filtered, whatever.
One thing about you, because you've always been a great mixer. He's mixed tons of stuff for everybody in this town. You mixed all the Toby Keith records, all
And that was 20 years of Toby Keith.
20 years. And tons of stuff for me. You've mixed. What aspect of your mixing style has been most affected by learning from mixing all these classic songs? What would you say is one thing you changed the most about what you used to do when mixing things?
I think sometimes I overrode. When I say override, too much fader movement. Because on some of the class, especially the older stuff, especially pre-automation, if it's like early 80s and before, stuff just stuck out sometimes. And sometimes that's really, really good. Other times you go, I would have fixed that. But I find that, it's the imperfections of maybe a little less automation, perhaps. Because nowadays, everything can be automated. I mean, God bless, you can.
Each syllable could be its own.
Yeah, you can automate every aspect of the EQ, the compressor, the effects, the returns, not to mention faders and mutes like we've always had for the last 45 years. But I sometimes find that maybe I don't need, I still check it to see if it needs to be written. And I'll put my hand on the fader, like say the rhythm guitar, and go through the song, and I'll look up and I've not made any moves. And it's okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to make tons of moves.
Right.
But yeah, I think sometimes I overrode some instrumentation, and then sometimes it makes it sound a little safe.
Right.
And
That's
maybe
facts.
not doing so much of that.
I love that.
But that's not every song. It's not just
Yeah,
overall.
it depends on the style of music.
Right.
So, a couple things. Then we'll hang up. we were just going direct on this, and I brought a couple of really cool pedals. I brought Maestro parametric filter, which
There's
I
one on
love.
reverb.com for $788. Oh no, I just bought it. Never mind.
1799. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
$1,788.
And then there's a big Muff there, 1973. And remember, you guys remember when I did the Paul Davids video where he had those, whatever, 10 different guitar players playing over the same track?
Yes.
Mhm.
We did that. I did that over here. That's in this room. If you guys remember the video, called up Mills that day and said, "Hey man, would you record this guitar track for me?"
Yeah.
Because in the South we say guitar.
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 Right, in the South we say that.
It ain't a
Yeah.
guitar.
It's the actual
Guitar.
G.
Guitar.
Guitar.
Yeah.
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 Gotta get it.
Thanks for filming. I know your arms are getting tired. 'Cause I've done that a million times. Your arms
You
get super
set it
tired.
up right.
Yeah, dude. Anything else you want to tell the homeschoolers?
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Thanks for filming it, bro.
Of
Appreciate
course.
it, man. All right, guys.
No problem.
Peace out.
Peace.